Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we'll discuss old wine in a new bottle with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We have close to 20 members on Zoom and 10 on Facebook. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to another episode of Spiritual Fitness.
Thank you so much, Jay. I'm glad to be back here. And thanks everyone for joining in today. We got another idiom because I'm on an idiom kick these days and lining them up. Sometimes, often, we take for granted, I take for granted phrases that I use or that other people use, but it's interesting to trace out where they came from or what the deeper meaning of them might be. There's a reason that they persist in the world. And so we're taking idioms and digging down and giving some spiritual meaning to them, context beyond maybe what they're normally used for, although they inherently have some wisdom in them, these idioms that we're picking out to direct our lives in a particular way, but we're trying to go a little bit deeper. So today's is old wine in a new bottle. Now, a few of you, we've been getting a few requests for more time for questions. So I just thought it'd be interesting if anybody has a burning question from the last time or at all, just to start off, if you have one, just raise your hand or feel free to unmute and ask it. That, of course, goes for any time during the program. You can unmute or you can write in the chat box. But I would like to ask, if you have a question, you can ask it now. And if you don't, then I have a question for you, if that's fair. Do you feel that that's fair for me to ask you a question so early in the program? If so, give me a thumbs up. We got 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, a few of you think it's fair. So when you read the title for today, Old Wine in a New Bottle, what did it bring to mind? Or perhaps you read the subtext as well, and maybe you can say, any thoughts? What came into your mind when you read about the title or the subtext?
Ancient wisdom in current times.
Ancient wisdom in current times. Nice. I like that. There's something about ancient wisdom that resonates because everyone's looking for a formula that will improve life. Oftentimes they come in very superficial ways. But wisdom sounds like a reasonable proposition. And if it's withheld the test of time, perhaps it's got some potency to it. Thanks, Wolf. Good to hear your voice, by the way. Let's hear what else. What else did it bring to mind?
There are a couple on the Zoom chat. One is from Sandeep. He has similar thoughts. How ancient wisdom matters in the modern world. And another one from Tonya. She's asking, are we repeating all the same cycles? She's wondering, has it happened before? It's going to just continue.
Yeah, what a good observation. Both of you had how ancient wisdom matters in the modern world. Yeah, does it matter, or are we beyond all that? Have we surpassed ancient wisdom and spiritual knowledge? We figured it all out on a subatomic level, and it's all working fine now. And there's no issue. We don't really need so-called wisdom anymore. And how about, are we repeating the same cycles? That really fits with the idiom, doesn't it? Old wine in a new bottle. That am I doing the same things over and over and over again, just changing clothes and doing it apparently in a more sophisticated way? We're going to talk about that today because it's a little bit eye-opening, I think. What else do we have here? The chat box is lighting up. That's good.
Yeah. Soumya says, eternal soul in a new body. Then Z-Day says, I've been studying US history through indigenous eyes recently. So this topic is very top of mind for me right now.
Nice. Soumya, eternal soul in a new body. I like that. And so you'll see from the slides, we can just change the word body for bottle and vice versa to get a deeper entrance into the idiom itself. You're not your bottle. So oftentimes I've said on this show, you're not your body, but saying you're not your bottle, people get, wait, what? What do you mean I'm not my bottle? Well, you're an old wine, a new bottle. And Z-Day, I've been studying US history through it, indigenous eyes recently. So this topic is very top of my mind. Nice. And what did Linda write?
Linda is writing, we need to get back to our basic values to make it in this now complicated world.
I resonate with that totally, Linda. I'm a great believer in basics. In fact, in any discipline, as you've heard me say it, perhaps ad nauseum, by now that you always win with basics. And it's so heartening to have basics. I think the meaning of it really is to have complete trust in a particular value or practice. And as we've said in previous shows, that if you trust good seeds and then you go through the process, there's good confidence, or just plain confidence, that they'll grow and bear fruit. And that's one of the ways that I'm able to get through my days with enthusiasm, is remembering the basics, because often the mind wants to do all kinds of other things and there are distractions. And then there's a depressing thought that can enter in that says that if you can't do all these things, then don't do anything. Perhaps just tune out altogether. But the mantra about win with basics comes back in, and just repeat those things that are tried and true and stick with the values that always work. Thanks, Linda, for sparking that off.
I think Rajesh has his hand up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think the quick impression which I got is that repeated frustration in pursuit of happiness every day. Because looking for happiness, and everything you want to satisfy, you get the same frustration. So it's kind of same old, but you think here I'm going to set some, it's a new bottle, it's a new thing, maybe let me try and feel happy about it. Guess what? You get the same results. So that's what it came into my mind.
Yeah, marketing. So much of marketing is the bottle, isn't it? But then when it comes down to it, it's like, wait a minute, that's just orange juice. That didn't change my life. And oftentimes, and actually, this is one of the ways in which the ancient wisdom literatures describe our interaction with the material world. And I'm distinguishing the material world from our interaction with spiritual activities in the spiritual world, because we have sort of a dual citizenship here at the present time, because we're in a material body, but we're spiritual beings. And that one of the ancient teachers, who happened to be a 5-year-old boy and a saint all at the same time, his name was Prahlad, gave this famous phrase about the world that goes, punak punas charvita charvananam, which means you're all just chewing the same things you already chewed. You tried that before. It's the same thing. Now you put a different package on. It's like, let me try it again. You try it. It's like, same result. A little bit of, I think I'm getting some taste, but it goes away. And I end up in the same place I was. And it's actually a really important juncture in one's life to come to a stage of frustration and say, like, I'm just not getting what I want. So something must be wrong. Not that I have to keep trying, but maybe I'll try something new, a new approach, a transcendental approach. How about going beyond the bottle? Great. Wonderful comments. Thank you very much. So let's now we got some energy stirring. Let's try introspecting for a few minutes. We'll calm down and go within. So why don't we try everyone sit up a little bit taller than you were a second ago, and just notice how that gets your energies focused, and then try closing your eyes. And then bring your attention to your breath and breathe naturally, but keep your alert, non-sleepy mind on your breath. And notice that it's been going on all day since this morning, and you may or may not have had the time to even notice it, but it's a miraculous process. And as you're breathing and noticing your breath, let any other concerns that you have, anxieties, to-dos on your list, let them slide off into the ocean for a little while. You don't have anything else to do, nowhere else to go. Just be right here and be the observer and not the doer. Are we human beings? Are we human doings? And as you're breathing and watching your breath, become aware of yourself. You are a unit of consciousness. You have miraculous power. You can be an observer. For right now, you're watching the apparatus of your breathing system working, and you're sitting back as the witness. As that machine goes on, you as a non-mechanical entity are watching. And now notice and bring your attention to your heart. It's been beating since this morning when you rose from bed. But you may or may not have noticed it. It's going on. There's a higher force that's causing it to go on, and you're the observer, sitting as one aloof within this bottle-like body. And now, as the observer, see your thoughts. You'll notice that they are observable. They're things. They're also part of the external world. But you're different and separate from your thoughts because you're the observer. You're not your thoughts. Nor are you your heart. Nor are you your lungs. You're not the bottle. But you're the living force that's within the bottle. And now, as you've taken this position from your perch within the body as an observer, we'll synchronize the spiritual energies by chanting the mantra Om. You can repeat it, sing it along with me behind muted mics. Om. 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 And now we'll chant together the 2-syllable mantra Rama. 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 And just feel how the spiritual vibration enters within your body and naturally brings you to a higher state of awareness of yourself and the miraculous way that you're being maintained. And now bring your attention back to your breath. And then rub your palms together to make some friction and become aware of your external body. Open your eyes and come back into the room. And welcome back. I'm glad we got JM back because he's got to run the slides. So let's go to the slides for a minute and provoke some conversation, because conversing about the transcendence, that is the difference between matter and spirit, is one of the ways to develop a consistent awareness of one's higher self, and therefore to work in the world in a more enlightened way. So the body is not the self. In fact, I was considering the other day about the different names that we get to designate the body. And they're like a name tag naming a particular bottle that we have at the current moment. But that bottle is going to get recycled at some point, and you're going to get a new bottle to live in. And the spiritual being is the one within the body that animates the body. As soon as the living force leaves the body is dark. And it immediately begins the process of degradation. There's various conditions like rigor mortis. The body begins to stiffen up, and then it begins to decay in various ways. It is no longer of interest to anyone either. I mean, there is some persistent interest in that somebody was in there that we appreciated or we loved, so the body is preserved in that way. But actually, if you wanted to associate with, for instance, a famous person, and then they left their body, and then you were invited, yeah, okay, now you can come have an interview. You wouldn't be that successful in the interview, nor would it be as attractive, right? What's the attractive feature? What's the essence? The essence is the living force within the body. What animates the body? The body itself is merely a vessel. So There are very important concepts that come from the wisdom literatures for understanding our context in the world and therefore being successful. After all, if I don't have context, I can't be properly situated, nor can I understand what's going on. Context is vital. If you say the word good, everyone says, I know what that means, good, but then someone says, goodbye. Okay, when they're juxtaposed, these two words, it can be a source of great anxiety. So if we look at the next slide, we see the basic teachings of the wisdom literatures that include the Upanishads, thousands of years old, that begin to distinguish between body, mind, spirit. And then in great detail, many of these wisdom literatures talk about the process of reincarnation. Carnate means flesh. We're not flesh, but we get new bottles, new bodies on a regular basis. And therefore it's called reincarnation. But we're the same living being, we just get a new body. So the process of reincarnation is described in a summarized form as follows in a book called the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been passed down over many generations. And it goes like this. When the living entity passes from the present body to the next body, which is created by his or her own karma, he or she becomes absorbed in the pleasurable and painful sensations of the new body and completely forgets the experience of the previous body. This total forgetfulness of one's previous material identity, which comes about for one reason or another, is called death. I have a question. Have you ever had an experience in this life where you forgot about a circumstance or a way that you acted from the past, and then it was brought to your attention again? For instance, somebody brings it up, or you read about it, or you find an artifact from your childhood, and then it all comes rushing back to you.
Mariam says yes.
Miriam says yes. Miriam, what happened? What do you have a specific that you can think of?
I can give you the specific, yes. So I think, and it's not through the sleep, it was daydreaming. And the way that it came to me is that I was in a place, I was actually in a gym. I saw a picture in the wall, suddenly close to another person. And the picture was the picture of muscle, like a person who opened his hand and have all the muscles pointed to it. And I remembered specifically about the past life. I remember the person who was a surgeon, who was working with the soldiers and was very interested on that poster. This poster was in his past life, and he had a notebook. He was writing. I remember that notebook, and I remember a whole lot of things. And I am almost certain that was from my past life. Just through a picture, I would say. Picture.
Oh, thank you for
on the
sharing
wall.
the details, Miriam. That's stunning, actually, to have an experience like that.
Thank you. And it changed my
Thank
life.
you for sharing. Yeah, actually, the memories of all that's happened to us, not just in this life, but in previous lives, are stored according to the wisdom literatures like the Yoga Sutras, which talks about yoga psychology and how the experiences that we've had in many lifetimes are there wound up like as if in a spool, or more modern example is like a cloud. And they're dormant, and then they can be reawakened at a particular time. Even sometimes what I've found is remembering incidents from this life and how much I've forgotten about them can be equally stunning or startling. For instance, I got this paper, it's on mimeograph. You know what a mimeograph is, kids? Probably most of you have no idea what it is. It was the ancient way, back when I was a kid, of copying things. And later photocopying came into vogue. But this mimeograph is from something my mother wrote, and I never read it before, but somebody sent it to me recently. And it was a study of a part of my childhood. My mother was a sociologist, and I was the subject, a willing subject. And she asked me, and I volunteered. But I sat here reading it, and it brought out a remembrance of that particular time in my life, which was around 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that reminded me of how different the bottle is now, my circumstances, everything else. And I thought how I'm just passing through these various phases. Of course, you can then extrapolate as from what we're hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the wisdom literature I just read from, of how that, if we can forget, here's the conclusion. If I can forget the incidents, the circumstances of this life, and I'm very sure I have the same ID card that I did back then, I'm likely to have forgotten my previous lives, or I should say, what to speak of the previous lives and how much I've forgotten them. Did anybody else have any incident that startled you from when you remembered it from this lifetime or a previous life, if you have had that experience?
Mona has a comment. She says, when I hear the Italian language, I feel like it is familiar, even though I do not understand the language. I feel like I could have been lived in Italy in the past life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, actually, there are documented cases. I think it was in the New Yorker or somewhere. Someone could look it up, but there's a woman who, I think something happened. She got hit on the head or something like that. And then when she came out of her coma, she was speaking another language. I think it was Mandarin or Italian or something like that. It's all in there. That's not fantasy. That actually happened. It's anecdotal, but it's nevertheless indicative. Okay, what else do we have?
That's all on the
Carrie
Zoom.
said, I do.
Yeah.
She has a remembrance of something in this life.
Yeah. Carrie,
Carrie,
you
want to say it? I only ask because you put an exclamation.
She says it's about the carbon copy. She understands that.
Oh, hey, all right. Kindred soul.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves.
Yeah, really. You got to be, to remember mimeograph. It's a good memory, though. Okay, that's old wine in a new bottle. Same idea, different technology these days. Wow, Z-Day, and I forgot Z-Day how to translate your name. Besides that, found man wakes up, car crash speaking Mandarin. Okay.
Nirali says, I have remembrance at age of 2 years old of being awakened in a temple when there was kirtan of Rama going on with bells ringing. It was temporary.
A very specific memory. Yes. Okay. So the point is that we're not our body, and we're moving from one set of circumstances to another. The circumstance that I'm in now is temporary. I'm only here for a little while. And I'm going to continue reading from the wisdom literature because it goes on from there. Remember, we just heard about what the definition of death is. Total forgetfulness of one's previous material identity, which comes about for one reason or another, is called death. And so the next one, the teacher continues and says, what is called birth is simply a person's total identification with a new body. One accepts the new body just as one completely accepts the experience of a dream or a fantasy as reality. Have you ever after being absorbed in your identity, had a moment to question it and say, am I really this body? Who am I really? Am I this a name card that I'm looking at? My name is such and such. I'm from such and such a place. But have you ever had a moment of lucidity where you thought, like, is that really me? Is that really my identity? I'm thinking of instances when perhaps, you look at your body in a different way. Sometimes people, when they're undergoing trauma, they have a kind of sense of being distanced from their bodies. Like you look at your body and say, what, is that really mine? Is that really me? I've accepted it as me, but maybe it's not. Oh, Charles.
Hello.
Hey, good to see you.
Great to see you as well. I had quick questions coming to mind. And it led to another question. So I was asking, like, why do we need to die? And of course, the body ages, it degenerates. So the question then became like, why must the body age and degenerate? Right. So that was one question. Then just the image that you showed earlier of the process through aging through life, going through death, and then being reborn. The image just struck me that, like, in the middle of it, just kind of this like purification process almost between this darkness and this light. So I was wondering, when we do die and then are reborn, during that transition period, will my soul kind of be purified in a way? Is there some sort of purification, cleansing process that happens?
The whole universe really is a kind of a laboratory for cosmic sensitivity training. It's so fascinating the way that everything's set up so that we have freedom to move about, to exercise our free will, but then there are consequences. And a helpful objective is to be aware of consequences. I mean, even within a tighter context, not talking about birth and death and so forth, when people are maturing, they become more aware of consequences. And they start to understand that actually I'm the one initiating the chain of actions and reactions that are taking place, a kind of self-awareness, like, have you ever been in a situation where you said the wrong thing and then you realize, wow, there's a consequence to that and I'm not going to do it again? I mean, I've had that situation where I said something and then it's now a part of my being that I'm with, I won't go there again. I'll be very careful. And so there's a way, as evolving beings, hopefully evolving, we have the choice not to. We can devolve also if we become complacent or indifferent or even inimical towards the idea of any kind of order in the universe. In fact, there are philosophies to support it, that there is no meaning, there's no order, and so forth. But becoming more aware of consequences is a type of maturity, and it can be expanded pretty much unlimitedly, that awareness. And then I understand from that development that integrity is the point of power. That is the fulcrum of power in my life, is my own integrity, because everything is measured, even on a subtle level. The way I act behind closed doors, the intentions that I have are all measured by this very sensitive environment, the universe, and nothing goes unnoticed. We could say, well, that's a bad thing. It's not. No, actually, that means that we have something to gauge ourselves by, the way the world reacts to us when we become aware that it is reacting to us, and we can improve. And it's remarkable when I make a decision, even the tiniest of decisions, that I'm going to be better. I'm going to have more integrity. I'm going to have, as I think it was Linda mentioned earlier about values. I mean, these are metaphysical principles, and I'm going to, lean into truth. It's metaphysical. You can't measure that from an Ace Hardware. There's nothing in Ace Hardware they'll sell you. So give me something to measure truth. So that's the purpose of the universe. And yes, it is a kind of purification when we get a reaction that makes us self-aware. We say, wow, I think I caused that, or I realize what the reaction is. And then if we can take the causality back further and say, I'm on a continuum. That's an important word, and having complete context. I'm on a continuum. So it's like, I'm a good person. It's like, well, what about last life? Can anything pop up? Anybody have any photos from that time? Let's say, look what you did, and taking full responsibility that everything that I've done, there's an aggregation of all that. And as far as your first question goes, the matter has a nature. It is enervating. It's continually falling apart. The law of entropy holds in material nature, the conservation of energy, it morphs into something else. That's the way the energy is. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom literature, it says, na sato vidite bhavo, na bhavo vidite sata. These two statements are measuring what's temporary and what persists. You, as the observer, as we already experienced in the beginning meditation, can observe all the elements around you and watch how they're morphing into something else, where you are always the same observer. And that's the difference between the two energies. And there's always a difference between them. So death only really becomes painful or meaningful when I'm identifying myself with matter. If I think I'm this body, then death means I just lost everything. If I don't think I'm my body and I'm just passing through and I don't identify with the world, what is the question of death? Because I have this idea, I'm just shaking off a mortal coil and I'm moving to the next place. Take, Socrates, right? He was challenged, or actually it was more than challenged. I mean, the Roman Empire was heavy. They didn't take no for an answer. And if they didn't like the way somebody was teaching, and they just say, excuse me, you can either be exiled or you can die. Which choice would you like? And he said, I'll die for my principles, because I'm telling everybody that you're not your body. And when he elected to drink poison, his students all came and said, please don't go. And he said, what are you talking about? This is just the mortal frame. He was not perturbed by the prospect. I'm not recommending drinking poison, but I'm just saying that those fixed in that kind of consciousness have an awareness of the difference of the two energies. And that's what's called being a Vedavit, or somebody who has actual knowledge. Did that answer the question, Charles?
That was great, and much more too. And great seeing you.
You too. Okay.
Linda,
Yes.
Linda has a comment. She says, I was able to be by my dad's side when he passed away and see his spirit leave his body. That moment changed my life. I've never looked at anyone the same from that day forward. I now always look past the body and try to find the spirit when I meet someone.
That's amazing, Linda. And I could totally relate. I was with my mother when she left. The very second, I was actually, we were inseparable the last few days, and I was there to the last second. And I relate with what you're saying, how it changed my vision forever. Yes, very helpful.
Mona says, I was holding my uncle's foot when he passed away in the hospital. When his soul shot through to my body and flew up to the ceiling, I felt the hot air as it passed through me and up, and nothing could explain what I felt. I had chills and awareness that the soul is separate from the body.
Amazing. This is one of the points that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that those whose eyes are trained in knowledge can understand what's happening, and those who haven't trained themselves in knowledge don't see what's happening. By the same token, a geologist can walk out into a field and see something that I don't see. Like, oh, guess what? There's diamonds underneath this. And I'll go, what? Where? It looks like dirt. And then even if I find a diamond, the diamond in the rough, I wouldn't know, but a geologist would, because her eyes are trained in knowledge. So there's a way that those who study this science of who they are, understanding I'm old wine in a new bottle, I'm not the bottle, are not bewildered by the change. Of course, it takes a little maneuvering when you do leave the body, but I know people like somebody who practiced bhakti yoga for many years. I think he passed about 10 years ago. So he was probably in his 60s. And he called when he was living in India and taking care of a farm where he protected animals. And he called up one of his friends, who then called me because I was an acquaintance more than a close friend. And he said, yeah, he just called me up and said he has to check out soon. And he said he had to ask him twice, what do you mean by check out? And he's like, he had been to Delhi, which was the next biggest city, and they at Apollo Hospital, which is a very advanced hospital. And they had diagnosed him that he had a couple months to live. He had some kind of fast advancing cancer. And what was his response? Yeah, I have to check out. As if he was leaving a motel or something like that. And his attitude was the same up until he left his body. So it's not a given that one has to be bewildered by the change. In fact, that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dehinosmin, don't mind the Sanskrit, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaran yovaranjara, tata dehantra praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. He says that the body's always changing from childhood to youth, adolescence, then mid-age, old age. And then he said, then there's another change, which is called death. And then dhiras tatra namuyati. Muyati means to be bewildered. And a dhira, D-H-I-R-A. Dhira means somebody who's steady in knowledge, steady because of knowledge, isn't muyati, isn't bewildered by it. It's something that he or she has already come to grips with, but even more than that, become aware of that I'm the wine within the bottle, I'm not the bottle. Okay.
And has a question. If death is just departing the physical body to get a new one, is suicide of a loved one wrong in the context that is usually just to be?
Yeah. So there are two bodies. There's a subtle, gross body or a subtle material body and a gross material body. So there's two bodies. When we leave the gross material body, we take with us the subtle material body, which is like the software that runs things. And it also, remember I mentioned earlier how the recordings of everything we've done, impressions, are there. That's the cloud we bring with us. And that's why when we get fitted into a new gross material body, we already have predisposition. Like as children mature, you'll notice that even twins, one goes this way, one goes that way. Everyone has their previous samskars. When somebody commits suicide, what often happens, according to the wisdom literatures, is you forfeit your physical gross body, material gross body, but you stay in your subtle body because you did it in an untimely way. It's like a illegal forfeiture. And so you have a subtle body that you're even aware of, but you can't interface with the world the way others who have a gross physical body can. For instance, I can grab this cup right now because I have a gross physical body. As a being inside a subtle body only, I can't do that, and therefore it's described as a kind of well, I hate to use this word, but I'm going to anyway, a torturous situation. So suicide is not recommended. There is a time at which one can reattain get back into the cycle, but it's not highly recommended, the suicide process. Did that answer the question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. You want to
Okay.
talk about a few more slides?
Yes. So this is wisdom, according to Bhagavad Gita, knowing that you're permanent and your body's perishable. I mean, how could I possibly miss that? And the answer is apparently very easily, because most people, if you ask them who they are, they'll say, I am a man, I'm a woman, I'm a cat, I'm a dog. And I'm Czechoslovakian, I'm Chinese, I'm Indian, I'm American. And there's so many identifications that I can bring up. These are designations that all belong to the body, but I'm none of these things. So developing this awareness is the foundation of spiritual practice. It's universal, non-sectarian, but it's actually the crux of the matter. So old wine in a new bottle from another point of view. Same kinds of activities, but just with dressed up. And I think that we talked about that a little bit earlier, that Rajesh brought it up about, okay, so we have some fancy tablecloth and we eat with silver and the dog eats off the floor. Well, not in America, dogs eat off the floor. Dog eats out of a dish. Actually, maybe the dog gets a silver dish. So we have different circumstances, but the eating is the same. So now we may have a car, which is a pretty sophisticated bit of technology, especially nowadays. And the dog has 4 legs to run on. The point isn't the sophistication of the vehicle, but the purpose. Where am I going? They're different bottles, but if the purpose is the same, for instance, dogs are often compelled to, basic dog activities and eating, sleeping, mating, defending. If a human being has no higher purpose in mind, then there's a way in which the movement is the same. Dog runs on 4 legs, humans run on 4 tires. So just because, here's the conclusion, just because the external trappings are improved doesn't mean that it's better. It's an inside job. We have to be clear about the higher purpose and be motivated inwardly to fulfill it. Okay, let's go to the next one. How many new styles have been around since you've been around? And sometimes they come in full circle. Hush Puppies went out of style, and then there were some trendy artists or trending artists in Greenwich Village who started wearing them as a fashion statement to show their avant-gardeness, and then they brought them back. Speech changes. I studied English literature. Old English, you won't be, you can't read it unless you specialize in it. Even Middle English, very difficult for most people to read. Now we have modern English. Speech changes all the time, but it's not so much which words you're saying, but what are you talking about? And then technology, of course, we have all kinds of technologies and medicines, but if you go to the hospital now, or anytime, I'm not talking about now during a pandemic, I'm talking about at any time, and you ask your doctor, can you guarantee that you'll save me from this disease that I have right now? And what will your doctor say? Anyone? ITMB. What does that
I
stand
try
for?
my best.
Yeah, that's right. I'll try my best. There's no guarantee. And what if you say, I want a machine? I know Larry King wanted to be cryogenically frozen. I don't think he did that, but Walt Disney perhaps was, with the expectation that all in a few years or maybe more, someone will figure out how to overcome death. And so we have all these new technologies, medicine, speech, style, everything changing all the time, ostensibly becoming more sophisticated, but the problems are always the same. By the way, does anybody know what the death rate is right now compared to the 1700s? Can anybody say? What's the death rate now compared to the 1700s? That's pre-anesthesia and everything like that. What's the death rate? Current death rate versus the 1700s. It's a trick question. Somebody can just
100%.
Thank you. The death rate is 100%. Was in the 1700s, and it was 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. The death rate's always 100%. And it doesn't matter what technology. Of course, it matters to some degree in this brief life that we have. I mean, since anesthesia, you didn't have to grit your teeth when your leg was being amputated. And so there's some creature comforts, but that's what they are, creature comforts. They're not complete game changers, because the only thing that's a complete game changer is if you say, okay, we've overcome death. We've overcome old age, birth, disease. And someone might say, well, that's fantastical. That's utopian. No, that's the purpose of the human form of life, according to the wisdom literatures, as to rise above the bottle. The problem is I'm stuck in a bottle. The solution isn't to get a better looking bottle. Yeah, go ahead. Albert Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So we have to have out of bottle thinking in order to come to this stage. And there are simple practices mentioned in the next slide. Here are a few of them. Again, disparaging the idea of decorating or even changing bottles won't help, but transcending the bottle through spiritual practice, upgrade habits. Mantra meditation, which is something we talked about as a transcendentalizing force, transforms us and gives us the ability to actually upgrade our habits and change our lifestyle. Selfless service is one of the most aligning processes recommended through the wisdom literatures. And spiritual association community. Find good association that's aligned with the higher purpose of transcending and coming above the anomalies of this life, which are inevitable unless I change what I'm doing and come to a higher level of thinking. Now we have a few minutes for any final reflections or a question.
There are a couple of reflections on the board, which I'll quickly read out. One is from Carrie. She says, "My mother passed away a month and a half ago. I was at her side 22 hours a day. Moments after she passed, I read a scripture out loud to her that the Champlain read to her earlier in the day regarding love, and after that I also read a poem given to me from another Champlain a few days earlier. Moments later, he passed away. Facial expression changed from despair to smiling. It brought me an immense peace I carry to this day. I also feel her presence. Yesterday, I was speaking to someone about death, and after that conversation, I started crying. Within seconds, I felt a very warm sensation from my neck down. I knew she was hugging me."
Well, thanks for sharing that, Carrie. These are very meaningful experiences that we can have in our lives, that we do have in our lives, or if we're fortunate enough to be there for it and to have some breakthrough experience. Gidget. If you're speaking, I think you're
Hello.
still muted.
Okay, I
Hi.
had to get it. Hi, I had to get
Hi.
off mute. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I just wanted to say thank you because I mainly joined the series because I seen the title, and because I'm a person who reads the Bible, I confused it with Matthew 9:17, where it says, "Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the wineskins will burst, the wine will spill, and the wineskins will be ruined. Instead, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." So I'm sharing that because that's one perspective I had, but now I have another perspective because I thought of it when you said an old wine. I'm an old wine. And I thought, okay, I'm a fine wine. But I thank you for giving me a new perspective of the bottle because I am one who believes that we were meant to live forever. So it gave me an understanding of reincarnation. And there are so many times that when I went to Louisiana, I felt I've been here before. I've seen this. I've done this. So I know I have somebody or figures within me. And then I can also see ahead those deja vu moments where it's like, wait, have I been here before? Have I done this? This is so familiar. So I just wanted to thank you for this series because it gave me definitely a new perspective.
Thank you, Gidget. Your contributions are always energizing, I must say.
Well, thank you very much.
I
appreciate it.
think you're a public speaker or a presenter somewhere.
Somebody just asked me, would I be a speaker for one of their events? You hit it right on the head. And like I said, that third eye, I know it. I know, and I just because of that, I just have to say, hi, how you doing? And it's always
Hey,
so good to
right.
see you. And
So
it's
good to
just
see
so
you too.
strange that this is confirmation that eventually I am supposed to be a motivational speaker, but charity starts at home. So pray for me if y'all pray.
I definitely will. And I think that you're already there. So just carry on.
Thank you and take
Thank you so
care.
much. Take care.
Hmm.
So I'm going to end with one mantra. Mantra Gidget said pray. So it's a kind of a prayer. And it's meant to connect us to our original divine source. And so we'll just do this mantra, Nitai Gauranga, and I'll use my harmonium.
Thank you. Hmm.
I'll say, and then please repeat behind muted mics. Nitai Gauranga, 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 Nitai Gauranga. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We got a report this morning from the Himalayas. They wrote in through WhatsApp. They saw actually a couple of the yogis high on the top peaks who live in caves, who come out at this time of year to gather some roots and fruits and bring them back to their caves so they can go on meditating. And they wave to each other. And sure enough, they continue with this phrase that they always call out to one another that means keep the transcendental vibration going. And it goes like this, Haribo. So since we're in a little cave-like situation here,
Haribo.
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 Haribo. Haribo.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Thank you very much, everybody. See you soon.